been introduced. And I am very passionate about big data, and it's because I think I have a long experience, perhaps not very pleasant experience in the beginning, but later, of course, became something that I love and something that I also enjoy and something that I see value and impact in it, that helps people, leverage, be more productive, improve your performance. And as much as I know there's this threat of people say, oh, AI is coming to take people's job, I'm always on the view that it is not necessarily taking people's job. It's not replacing human being. It is mostly complementing the things that it can do, but should leave you do the things you should do. So there are many things that I think that happens in organizations that I always say they are really not supposed to be done per se. For those who may have attended my sessions, you may have heard me talk about things like reconciliations. You go to organizations and you find people doing reconciliations, and you're like, is that really a career by itself? Trying to post entries from the general ledger and trying to match debits and credits, match invoices to your chart of accounts, match payables and receivables to your revenue accounting. It doesn't really make sense to do some of this work, because I'm sure there are more other high value work that should be done by human beings beyond that. Things like relationship, connecting, exercising empathy, coaching, mentoring. I think those are more human-centered roles that you all should adhere to do than the transactional work that mostly we do on a daily basis, because sometimes it's really not very much very rewarding. So that's a build-up of this, and therefore I think it's something that if we are open, just like the way during the computer age, I remember back in 1999, when computers were introduced in the market, and you are crossing over the millennia, the 2000, the famous 2000. And during the crossover between 1999 and 2000, there was a lot of fear. Because people are saying, I think things are going to crash and computer is coming when you're getting to a computer age. And it's like people are thinking the world is coming to an end. And people are fearing their jobs. And as we started doing automations, in fact, currently, that computer age, the Internet of Things have created more jobs than ever in the history of life. So AI is also coming, and it is there, not just coming, but it's there. It is not like it's going to replace human in terms of what you're supposed to do. However, the transactional jobs generally, of course, are going to disappear. But there are many other work or many other jobs that have been created by AI than there before. The people I've seen, yesterday I was coaching a HR professional in Uganda, and something interesting, she told me, Gabriel, by the way, I'm generating some videos for my mentorship program using an AI architecture. And initially, I had to hire a videographer, a motion graphics guy who would just be able to come and edit my videos. And I'm doing it all by myself. So can we say, Lily, that AI is a threat to that person? No, he does mentorship, but now we want to create more videos to learn her mentorship program. And she's comfortably doing it with zero skill in videography, zero skill in animations, zero skill in what you call motion graphics. And that's the beauty of AI, because it make kind of help people almost have the same level, that really you can find somebody doing some fantastic work and you think, wait a minute, do you have the skill in video editing? Currently, people are generating even visual impression for their buildings. So you even wonder whether you need architects very soon, because guys are going to AI and buildings, you give it impressions. I want to build a house facing north, the North Pole, and the wind blows from east to west, and I want a well-maintained lawn and nice palm trees and all that. Could you give me an impression of how that house will look like? And pop, give you a visualization of what that means. You want to produce kind of a visual graphics, right? Even on Canvas, and you go to Canvas and tell Canva what would be the best visual impression of an infographic, or probably a poster or a flyer to market an event in this kind of a season. And you tell you the best is to put a sunset or a sunrise or a chilly weather, and it will give you an impression around that. That's the kind of power we have currently. So we have power in your hands, we have power, we have intelligence, and therefore it's a huge, huge kind of positioning for all of us. However, for professionals, if you don't adapt into this, then I can say you have all the reasons to get afraid. So if you're not adaptive, if you're a person who is always stuck on the old way of doing things, definitely you have all the reasons to get scared and actually not needed to be comfortable with AI. So allow me to share some slides. I know for those who probably may have attended my session, these slides might be familiar, but I'll be talking through. So I'll run them very fast because we are recording this session, and therefore you can always replay them at your own time with your own tempo. So the session today is around big data analytics and AI sensitization for organizational readers. And I'll focus more on the big data side because AI is actually a solution that has evolved from the data side. So AI itself has been taught, has been learning. We've been building algorithms over the last many years back, even from 1960s. AI is not a new concept. It's only that right now it has kind of been more commercialized right now. It has been democratized and it has made accessible. Initially, of course, maybe could be used mostly for military intelligence. If you go to NASA, most of the international intelligence, they have been using AI to predict terrorism and being able to do security surveillance across. So it's not something very new. Only that right now it has been pushed now into the marketplace. So there are people who are thinking this is a very new thing. I think for those of us, maybe who have been in this space for long, you know that this is quite it has been there. But right now it's becoming more democratized, meaning it's accessible to everybody and it has been expanded to almost any area of life. And that, of course, is a huge, huge, huge breakthrough. So I think Doreen have appreciated the host for this session, Connect Resources. These are partners actually in Botswana, and we appreciate that they have been able to be part of these arrangements. And Inquest Research and Consulting, which I also represent, and Doreen as well. And then we have PurposeVerse. I can see patients here and MyVarsity. So these are part of our partners, and we appreciate that you've been able to organize this. So quick overview, just general trends on the market and the fourth industrial revolution things that probably you may have heard. I'm going to tell stories around them, so they might appear a bit more insightful as we continue sharing. Global outlook. This famous guy here, I'm sure we have heard about him many times. He is called Edward Deming, and he keeps saying that in God we trust, but all others must bring data. Don't tell me stories. Give me the data. Forget about the stories. Oh, employees are happy, customers are excited, we are improving our business. Give me the data that support it. Show me the evidence, show me the data. That's actually what that means. And I do largely believe in him. Not 100% because there are cases where you probably may not necessarily need data. And I'll talk about that. Why? Because in human intelligence, we are not 100% data-driven because we also have the power of imagination, the intuition, the gut feeling. So we can't disburse it. You know, we say stop the gut feel. That's okay. As in, you should validate your gut feeling or your gut intelligence, your just intuition. You should validate them with the data. That's okay. So you can't say that we purely rely on data 100%. No, I am not in that school of thought. I still believe that there's something, the higher dimension of human existence that is beyond data. You don't just necessarily have to facts. There's sometimes you envision, and if you look at people even who invented things in the 18th century and all that, some of them didn't have data. They were using critical analysis. They were using just an observation and, question life. And out of it, they get an intuition. And you discover, wow, wait a minute. I think I can explain mathematically why gravity exists. I don't think they were using data to discover that. So they were more generally using intuition. So don't just take me longly that you don't require intuition. No, I believe in the power of creativity and innovation because, again, we are created by God. God sometimes downloads insights. And out of the judgment and spiritual discernment, you might say, today I'm going to call so-and-so. And when you're calling that person, you discover that person needed you actually that time. There's no data you used. However, behind the scene, if somebody is also to critique in the quantum level, probably there were emotional data, spiritual data, and fact that probably would not made you call that person. So don't take me in terms of just that 100% everything must be data-driven. But to a large extent, you should justify the things that you do through a business case. Internet of Things. I'm sure we are used to this space. We are either on Facebook, we are on Twitter, current X, we are on podcast, we are on Google searches. Just imagine 1 second. This is the kind of trend. I have not yet gotten, maybe I'm going to check it, whether there's an updated version where now we include TikTok. And these are the contemporary apps that has come recently. So probably I'm going to check that and see. So, but imagine on Facebook, which I currently, of course, has a huge command in terms of visibility and people that are engaged with this social media. 52,000 of likes happens every 1 second. Like the time I started this webinar, it's several minutes already. You can imagine like almost hundreds of thousands and millions of likes have already gone into place. The question for you is this. Now, we say data is asset, it's capital, just the way you can buy a plot or you can buy a car and an asset. So what percentage of this asset, because this is asset, what percentage of this asset are you leveraging in your business? When you start questioning that is when you discover we all have a form of idea of how internet works, how social media works, but we are actually not intelligent. We are not using intelligence. We're just using these as a trial and error. I'm always very keen to test things and question, why are you doing this? What time? If you're doing a sponsored campaign, why are you doing at 10 at night? Is there intelligence that tells you at 10, there's a tendency for people to respond to it? Social media behaviors, there are times where we used to market things. If you want to post even a post on Facebook, there was a time where Monday afternoon around 3 East African time, 3 p.m., I know it has since changed. The time I was very technical on that area, of course, I could try to get such kind of, I was never bypassed by that. There was a time we used to post Monday around 3, 4 p.m. And a post posted that time used to attract what you call fast track responses. Fast track responses where you post something and within, like first 5 minutes, it has 20 likes, it has 30 likes and some few comments. So there was high engagement. But there was data showing that. So question is, what informs our social media activities? Sorry. You may find many organizations are doing things still haphazard with no pause to ask yourself, why am I posting something this time? Why am I sending an SMS this time and not another time? Because there's a human behavior behind every interaction online. So question for you, and I think you can pose this question even to your other team members, is what percentage of this data are you utilizing in your organization? It's a big question, but of course you may not have an answer, but it's a good question. Now, look at this. Global AI market value. Global AI market value. The market value for AI currently, 2023, by end of 2023, it was around 207,902. And this is in US million dollars. I think this could blow your mind because I don't know what this figure is in your currency. For those who are in different currencies, it's quite mind-boggling. This is the size, the market value of AI globally. Now, the only question again is, what percentage of this does your organization command? Is the organization creating digital assets that are more AI-driven? Are there ecosystem and platforms that your organization is leveraging that has AI, and that's become your property? It's like an asset. Instead of buying a plot, currently to be more important to own digital assets. They'll earn more money than a typical real estate, generally. Just pause for a minute and I bog your mind. There is, in the credit space, which is the financial services, we have these people who do credit lending, and whether it's mobile lending or even banks, SACCOs, microfinance and microcredit organizations. They have AI tools they use to profile whether you are creditworthy or not. So you download an app, And that app analyzes even your SMSs. If you're a person who keep on asking people for money, and it can raise your SMSs, and it asks you, allow access to your phone. So what it is doing, of course, it is going to check your travels. It's going to check where you visit. There are places you visit, and it will profile that you are a high risk. There are places you don't visit. Of course, they can say, this Maureen could be readable. It could be credit worthy. There are charts you make on your normal mobile phone, and you don't know literally. But those charts, that app can get an access there and can check through sentiments and the way you communicate and tell whether are you financially embarrassed, maybe by profiling you, you are a risk. There are people who send you inboxes, come in, tell you, when are you repaying my loan? When are you repaying my money? When are you returning my whatever? And that's already building a reputation for you. The kind of website you visit, those websites you visit can tell more of your behavior. And through analytics, then you can be able to tell if somebody visits this kind of sites, chances are they look suicidal. Chances are they are good leaders. They are feeding on the right content. There are books you are reading online and some apps for reading books, and the AI can tell, if you read this book, chances are you may have the right mindset. So I can trust with my money. Now, imagine the person who owns that AI algorithm. And then what they do, they partner with banks, they partner with the circles, they partner with microfinance organization. And for every credit profile that is made, assume you just give them $1. So take $1 for every credit profile. Now, some banks, one bank alone may have even 1 million clients. So for every profile against each one of those clients, $1. And I'm very fair in terms of the estimates. So imagine that AI platform, and it's an asset. That algorithm is an asset, like buying a property, a prod. If somebody has that kind of an asset that profile people and tell that Patience is creditworthy, Doreen is not, Maureen is whatever, we can trust Maureen with 1 million without even having to appraise her. Assume you own that asset. And for every credit profile, you get $1. One bank has 1 million. 100 banks have 100 million, okay? And you charge them for every credit profile per year. What is that passive income? Scale it globally and go to Africa. How many banks are in Kenya? How many banks are in Africa? How many banks are global? That company has an opportunity to be able to generate trillions and billions of US dollars every year. I don't think there's any product you can tell me you can buy, whatever, regardless of whether Prime is, that can generate that kind of value. And what is that value? An algorithm. Just an algorithm as an asset. And that's what we call digital assets. It's a huge, huge space. Question is, requires a different mindset for you to be able to leverage that. We are still young, especially in Africa. We are still building because some of the architectures and frameworks, we still don't own them. We are relying on external frameworks. We're just consumers, not producers. But I appreciate that we are now in a stage where we are building our own architecture and infrastructure slowly, what you call market ecosystems. World Economic Forum in last year, they predicted the various requirements for reskilling and upskilling, and guess what they prioritize? If you check the top 11 skill set that they prioritize, you have analytical thinking, creative thinking, AI and big data is number 3, leadership and social influence, curiosity, technology, design and user experience, motivation, self-awareness, empathy. It's a combination actually of, now I want you to check something here, and this is one of the things I tell people to reflect on. When you check at the top 11 skill set, you'll find 2 observations. And I hope we are also data-driven as you look at it. This is also data I'm giving you. Can you notice most of them has nothing to do with even the other skills that we learn in school? Finance, accounting, HR, sales and marketing, those conventional things. Number 2 observation, check. Majority of them have thinking. The top 2, analytical thinking, creative thinking. If you get also to number 8, design and user experience, there's something we call design thinking. So it's a combination of thinking and intelligence, because whether it's leadership and social influence, resilience, flexibility and agility, curiosity and all that has to do also with that component of intelligence. Being intelligent. That's why we need you. For you can't be empathetic if you don't have emotional intelligence. So even emotions have intelligence. Look at it. And that's why we are saying currently we are in the age of intelligence. That's where we are currently globally. We are no longer in the former age of computer age. That's already was long ago. In fact, we have even moved from information age. We are now currently in the intelligence age. That's something I want you to pick from there. And that's where thinking is very important. When we are building robots, it's because we want robots to think the way a human being thinks. That's the reality. So we are building algorithms, feed them in robotic environment so that robot make judgment and intuition. Of course, it doesn't do intuition like human being because you have consciousness, doesn't have. But you're trying, and that's what scientists are doing. Currently, the data scientists, the current research trends in the data science is what we call psychoanalytics. They're trying to understand how humans relate in terms of consciousness and try to see how you can reduce that consciousness to an algorithm. Of course, we know that is quite a very dangerous trend because that creating a generative AI that then can be able to self-propagate, self-direct, self-authorize itself with no human judgment. Because that's what makes us different between human beings and other animals. Because you have consciousness and discretion and rationale. But generally, I want you to see that AI and big data is not optional currently. It's the reality of the world we are living in currently. So question is, how well are you leveraged in this process? Checkpoint. These are quite quick checkpoints that I may want you to reflect. Any business always require demand because if there's no demand for business, then why are you in business? But question for us, how are you using data in marketing intelligence, in demand forecasting? Can you be able to predict for me and say next year, January, the demand forecast for our services will be 2 billion. And therefore, I want to address that. And more my marketing intelligence and plans and strategy are anchored on that insight. How many organizations are doing that? I know of you, of course, who are critically be able to do this, but you find the penetration level is very low in terms of adoption for this. So how are you using those algorithms to be able to do trades in demand models and tell you, this program I'm learning, this product I'm selling, the addressable market for it is worth how many? Or even how many people are likely to buy, that probability. Number two, resource and inventory optimization. People are battling with the resource issue. How many employees should I need in my organization that are optimal, that will give me the exceptional service? How many combination of assets between technology, physical assets, equipment, all those things I should be able to invest in at what time? That's a resource optimization issue. And also inventory. How much stock do I need to maintain in my inventory books to distribute it to my team real time? It's a big question generally. Relationship management, whether it's you're dealing with suppliers, you're dealing with the customers, partners, all those. How is the organization leveraging analytics to assess and manage your partners' performance? This could be like net promoter scores, customer experience, of course, and many other factors. Logistics is a big issue. Many companies are transporting and shipping things, exporting, importing things, moving things from one place to another. So in what ways is big data being used to optimize transportation route, to know which route to use, like Uber, these other global apps that are all over globally? They use intelligence, they use some algorithms to tell this is the best optimized route that you can follow by predicting traffic and many other distractions on the road. But of course, on the logistics, in terms of optimizing your logistics, so that you reduce redundancies and reduce shipping and logistical costs. Because if you're importing things and maybe they just delay 1 day at the port, that's a huge millions, especially if you're shipping several containers, is huge implications. It will cost you millions of money. Risk management is critical. We do business and business is to do with risk. So how is big data contributing to the assessment and management of enterprise? You can build algorithms that can help you predict the risk that you don't hedge. If in insurance space, there are times where you can change the prices of the policies depending on the seasons. And you can say in January, I'll charge less premiums. In March, I'm going to increase premiums. Do we just have one size fit all kind of pricing? Because most people do what you call risk-based evaluation. Now, how are you able to optimize in your organization risks using data that gives you agility in your policy framework and agility in your strategy? Warehouse management, for those who are in storage and all that, how are you utilizing this in terms of picking, packing processes around your warehousing with measurable improvement on how you can do to optimize your warehouse? Quality control. I think everything has quality, whether it's quality of the phone calls you receive. I think I was discussing with somebody who is in charge of a call center somewhere, and you're trying to discuss how do you optimize the experience of and the quality of phone calls. And maybe you have a contact center and you have guys picking calls from customers. Nowadays, of course, in the initial stage, what used to happen is that you had to have some other managers who come and listen to those phone calls. And I tell people that's so archaic. That's a 19th century intelligence where literally you have to go and listen to those phone calls and then try to check this contact guy answer the person well or not, or they abuse the customer. That's a very old school mentality. Why? Currently, you have proper AIs that you can be able to use. The AI reason on your behalf, and it will use keywords and sentimental analytics to tell whether that contact center officer was able to respond to the customer in a language that is decent, in professionalism. So how are we doing that? Okay. It's a big, big question for us. Sustainability and compliance, right now talking about ESG goals and all that. How is, either is compliance with environmental regulation, ethical, social standards and all that, are they monitored using real-time data and you can report on them real-time? Customer experience, how is customer data being analyzed and understood in terms of picking behaviors and preferences and understanding them so that you can be able to make informed decisions? So how are we building or modeling evidence-based customer experience that you can predict? You can see many super apps online. They're actually very good in doing this. Blockchain, of course, is also a data-driven architecture. We call it Web3. Web3 space is the current. We are moving away from Web 2, which was the Internet of Things, and now we are moving to what we call Web 3. This is where cryptography, the blockchain technology is being used. And it's being used especially on something we call traceability. If you're in agriculture, how do we ensure that you can trace the production? How can you ensure that you trace production from the source? You can trace even a distribution of a product from where it was produced from. Currently, we are buying devices, we are buying phone chargers and all that. You can only use blockchain to trace, is this really an original version of what I'm buying and what I'm supposed to buy from the source company? So how are we leveraging that in terms of data? Without data, it is very hard to answer all these questions. It's very hard to answer these questions. So, and I think the other, of course, what percentage of your functional and strategic decision points are mapped to data? It's a very serious question. So if you go to your organization and challenge your leaders, challenge your managers, challenge your CEO even, and you ask them what percentage of functional and strategic decisions are mapped to data, you'll get a shock of life. Many people are still doing gut feeling. What is your current value and lifetime value of your current data? Remember, I think I've given an illustration that data is an asset. An asset has value, ideally. So somebody will ask you, what is the lifetime value of your data? The data you own in your organization, what is the lifetime value? Can you give a valuation for it? I ask these questions even to CFOs, to CEOs, to executives, and they can't answer it. And then they will tell you they are data-driven. Then I don't know why would you say you are data-driven and you don't know the value of that data, first of all? It's a big issue. And that's why we are doing sensitization for organizational leaders to understand the value of data. How many business experiments have you done in the last 1 year that were based on data insight? A top of the box question. Are you doing experiments? Because if you are data driven, you always get insight, and those insights translate to experiments which you do and validate. How long does it take to provide strategic information needed for decision making? For those who have risen to us in the past, we always make this statement. If it takes you more than 10 minutes, sometimes I do 5 minutes. If it takes you more than 10 minutes to produce any strategic information needed for decision making, whether it's a monthly report, a daily report, or a weekly report, even an annual report, if it takes you more than 5 minutes, you are not data driven. That's redundancy. But you find people even today in organizations, they are spending too much time extracting reports. Those are the things we are saying AI need to take over. Why? Trying to do a report is redundancy. In fact, I keep saying reporting is redundancy. actioning insights from the report is what a human should do, not doing the report itself. So if you're spending even 10 minutes plus 20 minutes, there are people even who take 2 weeks to produce a report, a monthly report, a weekly report, a daily report, a quarterly report, a semi-annual report, an ad hoc report, or an annual report. That's purely redundancy in the age we are in. Why? You are reporting. That's historical journalism. The data is already there. So why are you struggling to extract data and organize it in a way that can be consumed? It is lack of competency generally. And that's a huge, huge, huge gap we have in the market currently. I consult a lot. I do a lot of consultancy and I speak to many organizations. I'm always in boardrooms with the board members, with ex-core CEOs and all that. And something always shocked that when people are preparing, let's say, for a board meeting, that 1 week before the board meeting, even 2 weeks, let me tell you, those people, you cannot even work. It's like work comes to a standstill. You ask them, what are you doing? We are preparing for the board. And I'm like, that's redundancy. That time you're wasting. You should have organized and you know what your board requires anytime, an organized data pipeline that feed into that, so that when you ask for a report, you can even produce it ad hocly, anytime within less than 5 minutes. But because we don't have the strategic intent, we don't have capability, we are always reactive. You're already waiting and you knew the board is coming to April, but the last 3 weeks before the board meeting, it's like companies don't work. That thing usually gives me a lot of chills. I hate hearing such kind of statements. You go to companies when they're doing monthly reports and even you can't get appointments. Because they tell you, CFO is preparing for our next committee. I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you wasting time? So that's a huge, huge gap in the market as we speak. What is the percentage portfolio in your assets or innovation that are solutions that are driven or designed from data-led insights? Do you have a portfolio within your organization that is directly driven by data, where you can say, we have mastered, I've been in operation for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. We have designed a trend in the market based on the area that we are strong at. And this is the innovations we have built in. And we can say we have an innovation portfolio of a certain value, and which is a percentage of the entire offering that you do in the organization. These questions are not very comfortable. Whenever I talk about this, especially with managers and leaders in organization, it is always a very sad moment. So what is your insight funnel? Can you tell me how many insights are at ideation stage, are at the experimental testing stage, all the way up to impact? We call it the idea to impact pathway. Many organizations, again, they don't have such kind of things. We usually do an assessment to assess data-driven organizations. And all what I'm telling you, all these questions, there are more than 20 questions generally, are part of the questions we usually ask them. And out of it, we will tell you your data-driven maturity. To what extent are you leveraging data in your organization? You can tell that using all this. What is your worth of your proprietary assets? That's also related to another question I had talked about, the value of your data. Then finally, what is the predictive maintenance we do of your vehicles? I'm just using vehicles as an example. So if somebody just to question, you have assets here, give me your predictive maintenance window to kind of manage your vehicles or your assets. Can you literally be able to tell this? It's a very tough question. If you're an insurance company, this should be a question you should know. Because how do you do your risk assessment? How do you do your underwriting for risk without being able to do this? But you find most of organizations, they are not yet there. It's a huge, huge gap in the market. So I want to park there briefly so that I can allow some few responses. I like this to be not monotonous, so I may also want to hear from you what is going through your mind as I go through this process. I would love to hear that, and then afterwards, I'm going to give some few other perspectives, and then we can be able to take a Q&A session. Any question that you may have so far? Any comments? Kindly? Yes, please. Fine, thank you.
Thank you for the good presentation. Just because I need to drop off, I have a question I wanted to ask about what does it take to build an algorithm for whatever maybe section or area you are interested in?
Right, good. Maybe that question will be clear based on another slide I'm going to show you in terms of something we call data to impact pathway. There's difference between data, information, intelligence, and then insight, and then impact. Algorithms are built at intelligence level, not at the data level. Okay. Data gives you information. Information is pattern. Now, when you design patterns of something, then what you do, you create a model. That model is intelligence. So whenever you talk about algorithm, it's a model. A model has input, output. Because until you reach there where you have an input-output model, then the only time then you can now try to produce a whole system that is using that model. So a good example, let me give an example. The one I was talking about, let's say, the one for credit rating. So what will happen is this. In the initial stage, you use historical data to design patterns of, let's say, people who don't repay loans. When I give people loans, who are these people who will repay on time? Who are these people who don't repay? Right? If you understand, let's say maybe people who are married, they have a tendency to repay loans with no default. Of course, you may not understand the behavior. Why are they even motivated to pay loans? Is it because they don't want to expose their children to have their houses mortgaged, taken over by auctioneers? Maybe that fear could also. So if you understand the behavior that make those people repay, what happens? You take advantage of that now, and then you will apply to other people when you're doing profiling to predict whether somebody has a probability to pay. I'll give you another example. If you're in medical situation, I know this is being used practically a lot in many medical technologies. If I want to test whether you have cancer or not, let's say of the lungs, what you do is this. You first of all scan like 1 million healthy lungs. You literally scan 1 million healthy lungs. You go to China, pick 1 million lungs. You go to US, another 1 million lungs. You can maybe scan from different ethnic groups and all that. So you already now have the AI able to tell, okay, this is the way a healthy lung should look like, based on actual healthy lungs that don't have a cancer. What happens is this now. The moment you get another lung that is not healthy, and then you come and query from the dictionary of existing healthy lungs, you're always going to get some differences. You're going to see, this one has a certain dot, this doesn't have a dot. This one has an artillery that is kind of, not looking normal. And that's how you can be able to build now an algorithm of an AI that does medical scanning for healthy lungs. It's actually as simple as that. The chat GPT currently, that I know we like using a lot, where you go and put questions and they answer you like it's a bot, even chatbots and all that. What does it do? You'd feed it with FAQs, frequently asked questions, just the traditional FAQs actually. But you train it with so many scenarios so that they build a dictionary. Number two, let the AI read books. Like ChatGPT, I don't know whether you know that they had a court case. That court case they had is because what ChatGPT did, OpenAI, that's the owners of the platform, OpenAI. What these guys did, they went and looked at all books all over the world that have ever been published. Authoritative books, books on emotional intelligence, books on leadership, books on programming, books on engineering, everything. Then the AI was taught on how to read those books. So you read a book on leadership, another John Maxwell book, another Steve Covey book, all those books, and then it is able to aggregate some repetitive patterns. And that informs the intelligence. It is as simple as that. So you have to get some patterns first, that is information. Then from the patterns, you build a model that has input, output. Then that is subject to what you call scenarios, prescriptive scenarios. Out of it, you automatically start building an intelligent algorithm. So it's as simple as that. It's just the way you train, the way you learn, the way you train even yourself. So feed with a lot of information, design patterns. From the patterns, build an input-output system that has, if I put this is what I expect. Test it. In fact, there's a lot of experiment there. You test it over a period of time to see whether it's accurate. After testing is accurate, automatically then it becomes an algorithm. So it keep learning. That's what you call learning. When you talk about training algorithms, it's like a learning process. The way you can train a child, the way you can train a young person to learn new concepts. So it's nothing far away from even how we learn as human beings. It's as simple as that. But of course, there are structured way, of course, how you do it technically, definitely, which of course we may not be able to discuss more. But it's quite as simple as that. So thank you, Maureen, for that question.
Thank you.
That's quite targeted, yeah. Anybody who have a quick comment before I share the few things that are remaining? I don't want to keep you for long. All right, good, fine.
I think I saw a question in the chat, Gabriel.
Let me see quickly. Thank you, Pat, for the comment. That's okay. Now that all data is accessible through AI, how can companies ensure privacy and security of sensitive data while still ensuring they stay top of the game? Now, data protection is a different conversation. I must admit to you that the only thing that is protected is data, not insight, not intelligence. Like now, you can't go and even a bank, they can't go and share my personal details. They go and publish to the public that Gabriel has a loan of this much. No. That's data. However, the insight from the data has no protection in the world. As remember, I say this data evolution part where you have data, information, intelligence, insights up to impact. Only data is protected. Now, to answer the question about confidentiality, I will take you now to what we call Web3. Web3 is the cryptography and blockchain technology. How it operates is this. I own my space of data. If the bank need my data, I give the bank a token. We call it tokenized. I give the bank a token, and that token has an expiry, and you cannot move data. Data doesn't move. And then that data is stored in a distributed network in form of tokens. So in that way, you maintain the confidentiality of data and the ownership of the data. I own my data. I know we are not yet fully in that space, but that's actually where you're moving in terms of what you call blockchain. In the blockchain space, that is the only time you can say confidentially that actually that our data will be protected. In the current architecture of the Internet of Things, AI is different from Internet of Things and blockchain. That AI is just an intelligence solution. So in that space that we are in currently, you can't tell me that you control your data. No. You go somewhere, you have an allocation on your app, Google allocation, the Google knows where you are. You can actually recreate your timeline of where you have visited. You go and pay using mobile money, and that data is tracked somewhere. So as much as it's protection, we have a very thin line on what you call protection. Of course, companies are bound by the data protection. It started in the UK, in the Europe, what you call DMLC, data management and whatever protection. So this started mostly in the UK before even we started adopting locally here, and it's many years ago. So you can protect the customer data, employee data. That's okay. You are not supposed to go and publish there. But the insights and intelligence from that data, it is nowhere protected. That's why Facebook, they may not publish your public information. They cannot go and tell people this was born to, unless you have authorized. This was born where the personal details, they cannot share. But they are busy cross-selling to you products. Why? Your data is being used plus other people's data to build an algorithm that is intelligence, and out of it, they're using it to create products and marketing to you. So you'll find some positioned when you're on those Truecaller or these other apps, you'll find some targeted advertisement positioned to you. That is not protected. And there's no law globally that protect intelligence. We only have law that protect the data itself, what you call the raw data. Let me talk about the industrial revolution quickly so that I can also allow some few questions later. So we all know that we are in something we call the fourth industrial revolution. And this is very important because when you understand the space we are in, you're able to leverage. You can never leverage that which you don't understand. That's a rule. So understanding that we're in the fourth industrial revolution is very helpful. It will help you leverage opportunities in this space. So we all know we have four industrial revolutions that have gone in the past. We have the first industrial revolution that happened in the 18th century. Imagine one day where water was the only resource. We were using water as a resource. Then in the 19th and 20th century, we invented electricity and magnetism. That's why we can even have electricity and powered, powered mechanization. And that creates what we call electrical and energy-based mass production of things. That happened in the 19th and 20th century. Then we moved into a computer age, which is the third industrial revolution. Notice The third industrial revolution that happens in the 20th century is also called the first information revolution. The first information revolution. This one is where information become capital and become the asset. Why? We were able to convert manual records, initially even in 90s. People, you go to bank, you deposit, money was recorded somewhere in a black book. In 90s, you know, in 80s, they were maintaining black books. Now, when the computer age came, what happened is that we were able to convert those records that were written by a pen and paper in a book and were electronically saved in an electronic format. That's what computer did. Then we added internet-based knowledge, where now we corroborated that information within a wider network. So through networking, we were able to discover, there's something called Internet of Things where we can have World Wide Web, and World Wide Web, we can corroborate things so that they don't have to sit on my desk. Because if I have data on my desk and the data crash, if your laptop crashes, the data goes. But now in the Internet of Things, you can save somewhere. It's even if your machine, the server is already in the cloud computing, and therefore you can always recover it through another device. That created a unified approach on how we deal with data. That is not the current age we are in. We have moved now, we are no longer in that age. We are now in the age we call intelligence age. In this age, which is driven by knowledge, knowledge is the key thing here. So in the fourth industrial revolution, we are dealing, of course, with intelligence. We are also calling it second information revolution, but I like calling it intelligence age. And this is an age of empowerment. Now, what is intelligence? Intelligence is synonymous to knowledge. We are actually in the knowledge age. And if you get this, it's going to help you whether you're in business and also whether you're in a career or in leadership. If you understand with the knowledge age, you look at things very differently because you leverage what we call knowledge capital. The algorithm I told you before, where you have an algorithm that assesses people's credit worthiness. That is knowledge because somebody sat down and understood behavior of people who can repay a loan and who can default a loan and create predictive models using some statistical algorithms. So out of it then, that knowledge is now later translated into an algorithm which become an AI asset. So it starts with the data, then become an AI asset. That person is likely to capitalize that asset way more than any real estate or property you can ever buy in any prime city in the world. And it's just a pure, it was sitting in the head, you create it, you now maybe integrated with other platforms like credit management system and all that, and companies and banks start using it, you are likely to have more value than any other. So AI become now an asset by itself. We call those digital assets. They are intelligent assets that are built from some algorithms. So that's the age we are in. So you're no longer in the previous age. Now in this age, the three things that are of course key is decision science. Now every decision must be backed by data, AI, and the Internet of Things still, which I know slowly we are moving into what we call the Web3, which is the blockchain or cryptography age. I know maybe we can have other sessions talk about that differently. Then customers are also changing. Customers want to be empowered. Customers need personalized attention. I want to feel Gabriel in something in my service experience. I also want real time. We call that prescriptive products, prescriptive solutions. And then I want differentiated value. This is how companies are competing globally because the company customer has options. You can go to the next bank, you can go to the next insurance, you can go to the next telecom. You have a choice. It's because you're empowered because of the information you have. We call these CX differentials. You cannot compete in this without data. You can only use data to leverage this competitive edge. So we are in the age where you get it now or go elsewhere. And that's a big issue because we are in the age of empowered customer. Before you go to a doctor and the doctor give you prescription, you're already Googling the side effects of a medicine. Why? Because you are empowered. So you'll be telling the doctor, hey, doctor, I saw there's a side effect of this drug. Why are you giving it to me? You kind of almost can self-prescribe yourself then because you are empowered because of the data. So this empowered age has three components. Everyone is your competitor. You might be in Botswana, in Nigeria, in Ghana, but you are competing with somebody in Pakistan and Afghanistan and India and China because you're in a one united world. So anybody, everyone is your competitor. Then anyone can be your competitor. And then finally, anyone can be your customer. Wow, I love the third one. Why? Because currently we no longer have geographical divides, meaning anybody in the world can be my customer. I can have customers in Nigeria, customers in Bulgaria, customers in Argentina, customers in Brazil, customers in Korea, and even in Ukraine. So there's no limitation currently. And that's the power of the distributed network that we have currently. But also customers want to be understood at an individual level. Customers want to be understood as an individual, not as a demographic. We used to generalize things when you say, oh, millennial generation, Generation Z, Generation X, baby boomers, urbanites, ruralites, if there's such a word, We used to kind of lump people into demographics. The aged, the young, the youth. No. Currently, people want to be personalized. They want to feel themselves as individuals. Understand me as Gabriel, not as men, as a male, because you have many males, but you're not, we are all different. I want to be understood as an individual. Now, you can't understand me as an individual if you don't know my data. Then you can't know my data if you don't have diversity of my descriptions. Meaning, you have to know my transactional data, demographic data, and a lot of other data sets. So long is gone where we use only to deal with just one data, where you'll only be dealing with transactional data, you know interaction data, you know behaviors. Right now, we are combining demographics, transactional, interaction data, behavioral data, all combined at one. So you don't just analyze a transaction. You also need to understand my demographics. You need to understand my behavior. You need to understand the interaction data. And interaction is where, of course, you'll be able to get into the space like call center data, web clicks, in-person dialogues, email chats, social media, and many other things that, of course, we interact with. It's a huge, huge, huge demand from all of us. Now, you can go and challenge your readers and ask them, what percentage of data are they using either in the demographic data, transactional data, interaction data, and behavioral data? And you'll get shocked. Many organizations are only dealing with what you call transactional data, the one that is in black there. It's the majority across many organizations. Then you can't be able to build predictive models if you're only dealing with transactional data. It's very limited. It's very limited. So that's why we have a new skill set called decision science. You require to have various competencies to thrive in this. I'm almost winding up. I only have maybe few slides so that we can have Q&A. For you to succeed in data science, you need to have design thinking skills. Notice the design thinking is a thinking. Remember, I told you some of the contemporary requirements in the current 21st century is purely thinking. But do you know there are people who fear thinking? In fact, I think there's a guy who gives statistics talking about that. Many people don't think. They work on autopilot. Thinking is hard. Thinking is hard. There's a tendency to just do things just the way routinely you used to do. Trying to think above, somebody has to stretch you. That's why you have to subject the brain into a storm to brainstorm, because thinking is hard. It requires a storm to brainstorm. Okay, it's not something very difficult. You have to apply and kind of another extra effort. But traditionally, people don't think. So you have also to have a domain skills, your area of expertise, whether you are a finance, a supply chain, a marketer, or a HR. Then a bit of mathematics, because most of the algorithms are built on mathematical logic. And then technology, because you can only distribute intelligence through a platform. So you need to learn Excel, you need to learn Power BI, you need to learn Python, you need to learn R, you need to learn Tableau, and many other tools, of course, people are using out there for business intelligence. Then you need to understand behavior, because life has more explanations from behavior and mindset than the transaction. Big data, I think this is a buzzword that sometimes people use out there, but I think simplicity of it is that any large amount of data that can be analyzed and be able to reveal patterns, and those patterns can lead into trends and insights for learning and solving complex life business problems. By the definition itself, even for Maureen was asking how do you practically, actually that is a sequence. Use a lot of data, big data. Computation, you have to design, reveal patterns. You have to go through patterns. Patterns are information and the threads, and then insights. And then, of course, that is being used for learning and solving complex real life situations. So you have to combine the 4 or 5 V's of data in terms of volume of data, variety of data, veracity of data, value of data, velocity. I usually go deep dive into this when we are doing other advanced programs where we can be able to understand how to apply all the 5 V's even when you build AI algorithms. Again, for Maureen question about that project, you have to consider all the 5 V's of big data when you're doing data-led projects. Where is data being used or big data being used in life? We are using natural language processing in things like chatbots. You know, every website right now has a chatbot. It's used what you call NLP, natural language processing algorithms, sentimental analytics. Like if you want to track how your brand is mentioned out there, you can go to Twitter, analyze all the tweets, and be able to understand whether your company is being mentioned negatively or badly. You know. Then, of course, computer vision is being used in things like what I talked about, medical diagnostics, like diagnosing cancer, where you scan millions and millions of healthy organs, and then, of course, compare it with unhealthy ones, and you're able to tell whether there's a dissonance or kind of an anomaly. Then security, when you're traveling through airports and all that, you are scanned on your face and all that, and fingerprints and all that, it's being used. Use computer vision. When you're doing your fingerprints, on those machines, the CCTV cameras, behind the scene, there's a lot of intelligence build-up on that, and it's being used for security surveillance. But also you can use it for marketing in terms of pre-qualified leads. Machine learning, this is where like things like ChatGPT has been used. You can use it even to know who to hire in HR, who to hire in terms of recruitment and many other things. And then, of course, digital assets in terms of creating what you call AI stacks and intelligent products. So these are just practical applications of big data. And currently, many companies are leveraging on this in themselves. Now, I say data has a revolution pathway. So the first time you get data is a clump, it's like a heap of wasted matter somewhere in a dumping site. That's how data look like. Data is not usually very lossy. It's not very colorful, and when you look at data, it's just a heap of things, facts, heaped somewhere like a dumping site. But you need to extract and sort it. When you sort it, you get patterns. Then you can see patterns of color here, yellow together, blue color, green color, and all that. Of course, that's very simple, but in an ideal situation, it's not that simple. Then arrange it to organize a system. And that system, we call it a model, intelligence. That intelligence, you can see now there's a kind of a certain system structure coming up. But then after that, you build in and present it in a certain way that, of course, you can be able to see some pathways and kind of some pattern taking shape. And finally, you can use it to build a house. So to build a house requires design thinking. You can have the same data, and many organizations have data, but not able to build that house. It's one thing to have the raw material, it's another to organize the raw material to build a house. And that's generally how analytics should be seen. It's a pathway. Many people are still, and organizations are still at the data age. They are still at the level 1. They're trying even to move to sorted data, cleanups, and not sorting data, and then arrange it, and then later, of course, be able to explain a story. That's why you need these analytics methods, descriptive statistics, where you ask yourself what happened. We call that hindsight, or descriptive statistics or descriptive analytics. Then, of course, you do what you call diagnostics, where you explain and say what happened and why it happened. Why did it rain today? Why did we record lower sales? Why did we have high attrition of employee exiting my company? So you don't just tell me you left, 10 people left your company. Why did they leave? If you can't explain the why, you are not yet in diagnostics. So this is why you do what you call root cause analysis. And apparently this is where experiments should happen. Diagnostics is where you do a lot of experiments. Many companies don't do data-led experiments. And that's why we are not becoming data-led. Because for you to be able to understand, you have to test a lot of hypotheses. Then after that, you do predictive, where now you explain what will happen in future, when and why it will happen. The moment you reach here, I can almost tell you, you have started being mature. The moment you go to the predictive stage, you can start now saying, I'm already now becoming mature, because you can now design a future. Of course, not 100% accurate, but to a large extent. Then you go to what you call prescriptive analytics, where then you explain scenarios. You build in futuristic scenarios, and those scenarios, for every scenario, has an outcome. So you could say, this is what is likely to happen next year in May. And if scenario changes to be like this is what will happen. I interacted with somebody who is a legal jury, an advocate of a very senior legal counsel in the US. We met sometimes back in Kenya in our industrial court. And I remember she was already, she told me how they are using legal analytics to predict a success of a legal case in the court, depending on the judge who is going to sit in the bench. Can you imagine that kind of an advancement? So they're able to tell if Maureen is the one who is going to sit and hear this case, this is likely the direction. If it is Aris who is likely to see this case, this is likely the direction. And they'll predict, of course, they may have an overall idea of the justice system, meaning the case you are going to lose or win. But they can also predict the specific outcomes against that. You can't do that without scenario kind of modeling, which we call the prescriptive analytics. Then finally, you have what you call the cognitive analytics. Cognitive is where now you drop the human being. Cognitive is almost the same as prescriptive and predictive combined. The only difference is that you drop human being. No human is involved. It's autonomous. This is like the way a self-driven car will drive itself. Doesn't require a driver because it has been taught with so many scenarios. That's prescriptive. It is taught how to discern using computer vision. They will take captions of a zebra crossing, where children are crossing, animals, bumps, potholes, all those things. And it will be taught with the traffic of the roads of the country. And it's able to know, I keep right, I keep left, there's a bump, and how I need to wait for the lights to show green. It is taught in advance. When it's taught in advance, it's automatically being able to interact. I had an opportunity to interact with one of the data scientists, very senior data scientist, who is working for the algorithms for some of these self-driven cars. That thing is mind-boggling. It is not, in you, when you're enjoying that ride, you enjoy it. But behind the scene, let me tell you, it's a whole work. No wonder these people are becoming billionaires, because the work behind the scene is not that easy. That data scientist, the kind of algorithms is training every bump. And then you ask yourself, how many combinations of bumps? We have rubble strips, you have the steep bumps, we have the one that is more curved, and then take it now over different countries. Those are just bumps. Train it on how a gazelle crossing may look like. Train that machine on how a zebra crossing will look like. Train it if it find an elephant on the road. Should it reverse? Because an elephant, you'll just broke your way. The scenarios involved to train that machine, these guys deserve trillions of dollars. Let me tell you, it's not that easy. But practically, that's what they do. So when you see you using an Uber, a mobile app where you'd say, I'm moving from location A to location Z, and then that Uber directs you that, of course, and tells you this is the direction that has no traffic. That machine has been trained with the millions and millions and bytes, gigabytes of data, so that it can be able to interpret all possible scenarios. Of course, there are times where it elapses, but that's purely because of human bias. Finally, if I finish with this slide, you can allow me to drop off the webinar today and we say we are done. This is one of the most important slides to show. And this slide, of course, talk about, again, the same data evolution path. Many companies are data rich, intelligence poor. That information can be intelligence, information, or insights. Data rich, intelligence poor. But we want to move to organizations where we have data rich, intelligence rich. Very few organizations have been able to reach there because of data competency gap. So data by itself, when you start, is very raw. Data by itself is very raw. You only focus on data integrity. When you analyze data and you reveal some patterns and some piece of threads, we call that information. It's a two-dimensional view of the same data. Then after that, you focus more on what you call standards and adequacy of the information. Then when you then discern some models, predictable models inside the data, inside the information, you build what you call intelligence. So intelligence is more the knowledge from the information from the data. The knowledge from the information. We call that intelligence. And here you test what you call relevance and reliability of the data. So there's a difference between information and the difference between that information and intelligence. So information is not intelligence. Intelligence is the knowledge from the information from the data. And then, of course, finally, there's what we call insights. Insights is the actionable component of the intelligence. What can you act on so that you are able to produce some results? This one has to be aligned to your business context or your, what you may call your strategy and the context of the market that you are in. You get into insights. And then finally, the impact. The impact now is the story that you give as a realization of value from the actionable insights you implemented. And that, of course, has to be memorable testimony. That is a justification of that the data helped you, enabled you to make an informed decision. If you understand this one slide, I can almost tell you, you are data literate. But many people are still stuck at the data age. They are dealing with data integrity. Is the data clean? Is the data accurate? And I may push you in some other webinars we have done before where I've talked about some examples of how you can actually, practical use case. I have several use cases here on digital media usage on that, financial credit behaviors. I have many practical cases. I don't have time to explain to you right now, but there are so many use cases that you can be able to use to be able to drive data to impact kind of transformation. I want again to park there, then I will just show one more slide and then we will call it a day. And the last slide is about what you call reporting, business report, value-based reporting areas. So any questions so far? Maybe then let me finish, then we can maybe go back into that later. Let me do this one more slides and then we can call it a day. So we have what we call value-based reporting. I know the screen is still loading. Let me see how soon it is able to achieve that. I'm sure now you can see my screen. Good. Value-based reporting. Reporting has various dimensions. We need to stop this habit of, is the data correct? And move to a stage where you're talking about what can we do about it. This issue of testing whether is the data accurate, did you capture all the information, is a waste of time. However, that's always the beginning point. But we need to move to where we're asking ourselves, what do we do about it? Now, because of that, we need then to make sure at least we have clarity around our strategy, our mission, our vision. Then we are clear on the strategy objectives, the measurements we make in organizations, so that when we meet together as managers and as leaders in organizations, we ask ourselves what happened, why did it happen, what should we do? That should be the healthy conversation into any organization. To achieve this, you require a certain paradigm shift on how we do our reporting. Our reporting, we have 4 types of reporting. The first level of reporting is what we call reactive reporting or operational reporting. This is where I report just because it is required of you. We call it compliance. Many of us report because it's compliance to report that way. So no value, we just report. And that's not very sustainable, because if you report just because of reporting, I mean, it's a compliance issue. If you move higher, you go to something we call advanced reporting, where you report based on some benchmarks. You start benchmarking with other players out there and you try to compare yourself with others. Then finally, is what we call advanced, second last reporting, advanced analytics. This is where you start maturing now. Here you report using what you call statistical modeling and root cause analysis. Here you blend in what you call diagnostic analytics, proactive diagnostics, and actionable solutions. Then finally, this is what you call value-based reporting, where you report from some predictive models, scenarios, in a prescriptive way. You can almost predict the future. And when you're doing reporting, you're not just reporting on what happened, you're also reporting into the future and scenarios that are going to apply. Then the adaptation for this in the market in terms of maturity curve, when we did a research, which is back, I think, in 2018, 2019, we are yet to do another refresher research for this. 56% of organizations are still doing operational reporting. 30% are advanced reporting. People are easy to benchmark. So you can see almost 86% of companies and organizations are purely at the lower level. Only 10% could do advanced analytics reporting and 4% could do comfortably value-based reporting. And I can associate it to capacity gaps in terms of capability, because we require more capacity to do the last 2 levels of reporting. The choke point is always when you're trying to move between advanced reporting and advanced analytics. That's where we get stuck, because it requires a different mindset to move into that direction. Good. So I think, of course, there are many things I can talk about. You also need to add magic into your reporting, where you build stories. You tell stories. Storytelling is very important. It invokes emotional response and help you be able to tell your story more confidently. If I didn't tell you a story when I'm talking about my presentation today, the conversation become very boring. Finally, of course, you also need what you call design thinking skill. And I advise all of us to do this. Go and do a self-study. Go to Udemy, Coursera, and any other online platform and do a short course on design thinking. It's going to help you. Because this is the way a human being rely with intuition and imagination and recognize patterns and, of course, to come up with meaningful ideas that solve a need in the society. Design thinking is a critical skill in the 21st century. Why do you get a challenge in data? First, of course, not mapping decisions to our data cleansing, where data is already data, you have to clean it, document to data. Some data is in documents, sometimes physical documents. Converting it into data is a big issue. Companies who are data rich, intelligence poor, then moving, of course, towards data rich, intelligence rich. Then no data strategies in many organizations, raw data literacy, skewness on transactional data and not using other data like demographics and transactional data and also interaction data and also behavioral data. Relying only on your data in your company only without looking at the big data out there. No dedicated data science function. Many companies don't even have dedicated people who are dealing with data. Inadequate tools, you need tools to analyze data. No real-time reporting, data regulations, of course, data protections, and other things that, of course, we've seen happening. And then siloed data enterprise. Good. So you need to think like a scientist to succeed in this journey, and you require some mindset. First, you have to be open-minded and curious. Curiosity is a resource here. Data, you have to be also focused on the customer, maybe because you're not producing a solution for yourself, it's for the customer. So you have to be customer-centered all the times. Then, of course, there's what we call experiential learner. You have to learn through experiments. You have to believe in the role of cause and effect. Of course, measure everything. Then finally, of course, apply design thinking in your work. If you want to progress in learning, we usually have a certified data professional course, which takes approximately 3 to 4 months, which you can always subscribe. I'm sure the team here could share our link. We have an upcoming edition in April, which you can subscribe and become a certified data professional. And you're going to learn so many things around that: data mining, data transformation, data analysis, data visualization, introduction to AI, and of course, data project. It's a very revolutionary project, that kind of a program. And then if you're a manager, you can become a certified data-led and innovation-driven manager. We have a masterclass that we learn also. Also check out on our catalogs and our links. I'm sure you'll be able to get this along the way. So it's also a masterclass for managers, because managers, mostly, they are not taught how to manage using data. So they require certain managerial competency. Beside the technical, there's managerial skills. So which, of course, it's good to do once you do the data-led professional. Then, if you have CEOs and executives that you may want us to evangelize on data, we have something we call big analytics for executives and also AI for executives. So CEOs need to appreciate this, and we help them see how you can link data to your strategy, how you can model that evidence-based culture, and then how to drive innovation in the organization and apply this like AI also into this process. Then for HR professionals, you can become a certified HR analytics professional. This is a course for HR, and this is very competitive for those who are in HR space. This can also be something that you'll be interested in. Then you can learn other tools like Advanced Excel, PowerSuite, data visualization using something like Power BI. If you want to go to machine learning using Python, R, even if you have no that background, anybody can learn. And there are so many opportunities out there for this. There are opportunities for learning. You can be an internal consultant in your organization. If you learn this skill, you can also get into full-time consultant like myself and others. You can do full-time, and there's a lot of opportunities in this space. You can be a thought leader where you're writing articles and publications, building knowledge assets out there that people can pay literally. You can build some assets, and of course, people buy for them. And then also you can get into research, which is very key. But of course, you have to transition your mindset from a place where you believe you didn't have to do it to a place where you say, I want to do it. That's called interest. You have to be interested first. And then how do I do it? Seeking for knowledge, seeking for the competency. So that later, of course, you can say, yes, I did it. And cerebral, that guy on top there, yes, I did it. So you have to improve your attitude towards data. I have coached and I've trained people even who are purely have no background in data analytics. Some of them are HR, others are sociology, and later they become very good guys in this data space. So, but the choice is yours. You can choose to either step forward into growth and impact, or you fall back into safety and continue doing how you've been doing things in the past. The choice is always lies between our ears, which is purely our head and our mind. I will pause there and ask for questions as we wind up in the next few minutes. It's at exactly 1.5 hours, so can take 1 or 2 questions. We are going to share the recording for this, and I hope that you have learned something. You could also just put on the notes there, maybe what's your comment, whether it's an evaluation of this webinar, and also if there's any question you may want us to respond to. Thank you so much, and God bless you. And I think a link have been shared on there in terms of Data-Led Professional, and I think we have other programs. I'm sure you'll be able to learn more. Wishing you an impactful and a fulfilling career ahead. For those who are in business, leverage this skill also to go into business. I know it's a very high level, but later, of course, you can, when you show interest in some of our programs, you'll get now the practical process, which you can be able to master. And I'm sure that will be very thought-provoking. Thank you so much, and wish all of us a good time and impactful journey ahead. So I'll pick a few questions, then we can wind up as we stop our